to the Democratic candidates for office into the District Attorney of Bristol County. Here are the rules governing this evening. Candidates are requested to respond directly to the question. They are not to rebut the response of the other candidate or to ask the other candidate a question. The candidate will each have an opportunity to introduce themselves. These presentations will be limited to 4 minutes each. We will ask then 5 questions. The order of each candidate response be assigned at random. The candidate's response will be limited to 4 minutes for each question, the max. All questions and answers will be made in English. For Portuguese speakers, we have provided simultaneous translations with portable radios, which can be obtained in the back of the hall, with refreshments and the opportunity for the candidates and the parishioners to meet one-on-one. We will now start the program.
Obrigadíssimo por o convidado.
We cannot speak Portuguese, I'm sorry, Mr. Walsh. It's got to be done in
Por que não?
because it's... You can speak Portuguese after the program's over. It's all, I think I just read it. We cannot, we candidates are not supposed to speak Portuguese. After the program is over, you're free to speak Portuguese with the parishioners.
É prazer. Thank you for the invitation to be here. And I don't know why, when I visit Mount Carmel, I'm not allowed to speak Portuguese, but I will go by the rules this evening as I understand them. Many years ago, I used to come to this church, and I played basketball on this very floor many, many years ago. So it is a pleasure to be here. It is also a pleasure to represent the good people of this area. One of the reasons why I'm disappointed I won't be allowed to speak Portuguese this evening is that I traveled to Portugal. I studied at the University of Lisbon so that I could learn the language of the people that I grew up with, so that I could represent them well when I sought elected office. So it warms the cockles of my heart to be able to come here as your district attorney and represent you, and knowing that when I speak for someone, I speak for all of the people. That's what a district attorney does. It was not too far from here a few years ago, and a woman, she was a seamstress, and she was murdered. The murderer found her in her bed and took the scissors that she had used as a seamstress and stabbed her to death. We didn't say much about this case. We kept a very, very low profile and a very tight lid on the information that we gave to the public. The news media was furious with me because I wouldn't discuss the case. Many media representatives said it was a disservice to the public. But in our interrogation of witness after witness after witness, we finally came across one individual who said to us, "If you're asking me about that lady that was killed with the scissors, I don't know nothing." We knew immediately that we had our man, because nobody knew that she had been murdered with her own scissors. Being district attorney means having the backbone to stand up to those individuals that want to force you one way or the other. When the media criticizes you for being tight-lipped, to continue in that so that the integrity of the case will be kept. We won that case. That man is in prison now because we have a district attorney who has the backbone to stand for something and to fight for what he stands for. And if that's what you want in a district attorney, an individual that will stand for something regardless of the pressure, then I am your man.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Sutter.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank the Mount Carmel Church, and I'd like to thank the Immigrants Assistance Center for putting on this program and giving me the opportunity to present myself to the people here in the audience and all of the people that are listening and watching throughout our county. My name is Sam Sutter. I'm 54 years old. I live and work in Fall River. I'm married to the former Dorothy Feliz. She was born in Fenage de Luge in the Azores. She came to this country at the age of 5 with her entire family, some of whom are in attendance tonight. I am very honored to be married to her and to be raising our 3 children together. I have been a lawyer for 23 years. I was a prosecutor in this county for 8 years. I worked first in the judge session in Fall River District Court and gradually worked my way up the ladder at the district attorney's office until I was in Superior Court for 4 years. I prosecuted approximately 100 felonies, tried 18 cases, and won 16 of them. That's an 85% conviction rate. I can bring that same zeal and energy to the job of district attorney. Now, I'd like to speak in my opening remarks in the few minutes I have remaining about exactly what the district attorney does so that everybody understands it. The district attorney takes the cases from the police. That's 25 to 30,000 cases a year. 25,000 to 30,000 cases a year in this county of 500,000 people. Takes those cases into the courthouses in this county, 6 of them, and tries to get convictions and tough sentences, tough and fair sentences. That's the #1 job of the district attorney. In addition to that, the district attorney has the responsibility for solving and getting somebody charged and getting convictions on murder cases. Number 3, the district attorney has the responsibility for coordinating all of the agencies in the county that are fighting crime, making sure that they share information, making sure that they're on the same page to fight the gangs and the gun violence and the drug dealing. And finally, the district attorney has the responsibility for doing something about preventing crime by going into the schools to put on education programs so that young people make the right choices about what to do with their lives and don't choose crime and don't choose gangs, and going to the senior centers to educate our seniors on what they can do to prevent crime, either in their own neighborhoods or to try to prevent embezzlement schemes against them. Now, I am running for district attorney because I am positive that I can do a better job than is being done now through a better partnership with the police, through managing the budget better to put more prosecutors in the courtroom, and by using all of the crime-fighting tools, such as electronic surveillance. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Question number 1. This is for Mr. Sutter. There are 4 illegal drug markets in the immediate Montgomery neighborhood. Everyone in the parish knows where the drug sellers are. One is on Rockland Street. The other one is on the corner of Bonnie and Rivet. The other one is on the corner of Hall and Rivet. And one is on the corner of Thompson and Crapo. Why are they allowed to exist? Is the problem with the police, with the judges, or is it with the district attorney?
Well, I believe that we need to do about 4 major things differently than are being done now. And first and foremost is that we need to stop plea bargaining as many cases as we're doing now. There has been a policy in effect that if somebody is charged, for example, with dealing 100 grams of cocaine or more, or 200 grams of cocaine or more, that the charge is reduced in return for a plea. That's a classic plea bargain. Somebody's charged with a crime that the legislature has said they should go to prison for 10 years, and a plea bargain is when you reduce the charge so the person goes to state prison for, say, 5 years, and in return, the district attorney's office gets a quick guilty plea. I believe that that practice has to stop with the big cases, with the 100-gram and 200-gram cases, with the major drug dealers. Those cases cannot be plea bargained. Those individuals need to go to state prison for the amount of time that the legislature has mandated. My opponent can't find a case when I was with his office where I did that on a 100-gram or 200-gram case. And that practice that has been in effect with his office for 15 and a half years, that practice has to stop. Now, that's number 1. Number 2, we have to go back to the practice of electronic surveillance on the gang leaders and the big-time drug dealers. We used that very effectively during the 1980s. My opponent would like you to believe that that's outdated. It's not. You can't, there's no point in wiretapping cord phones, obviously, because most people use cell phones. But to suggest that you can't do electronic intercepts of cell phones is wrong. You can. It's being done all over the country. Over 3,000 last year. In Coventry, Rhode Island, we recently did one. At the United States Attorney's Office, my information is that they have 50 cases right now involving wiretapping or electronic intercepts of cell phones. So that's something that was stopped. That's something that we need to do. Number 3, we need to have a closer partnership with the police. There's a reason why I've been endorsed by so many police departments. And that reason is because they want a closer partnership than they have right now with the present district attorney's office. And if there's a closer partnership, there's more sharing of information and there's better prosecution cases. And number 4, we need to use, and this I think may be the central point of your question, we need to use the dangerousness statute and the bail revocation statute much more than we're doing now. Now those are legal terms, but let me tell you what they mean. What they mean is that if somebody's arrested and they have a record, and they're arrested for a crime that's dangerous, and certainly dealing drugs in large amounts is, that person can be held without bail. All the assistant district attorney has to do is make the right showing to the judge. That's not being done enough now. We have to stop the revolving door. So those are my 4 points. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sutter. Mr. Walsh, same question. Would you like me to read it again? Okay.
Within the last 18 months, there was a drug dealing gang in this area out of Ruth Street. Brandon Gonzalez was the head of the gang. Our office, using electronic surveillance in concert with the federal government, broke the back of that gang. 28 individuals are pending trial in federal district court in Boston. And the gang leader, Brandon Gonzalez, is on the run. We broke the back of that gang. This is what we need to do. This is what we have been doing. There are other things that we need to do. We need to change the culture of the courthouse. We need to let the judges know that there is no such thing as minor crime. That when crime happens in your neighborhood, it's major crime. We have to change the culture of the courthouse and let the judges know if they cannot see the light, then District Attorney Walsh is going to make them feel the heat. I have been famous for my fights with judges, whether they release someone on bail or they give a slap on the wrist sentence. And we need more of that. We need someone that's going to get in there and fight with these judges and fight for our neighborhoods. This is not about new technology. This is not about 5-point plans. This is about backbone and getting in there and fighting in those courthouses for our neighborhoods.
Thank you. Question number 2. Mr. Sutter, habitual criminals are being arrested, released on bail, rearrested, and again released on bail. Why are these repeated offenders over and over again let loose on the streets?
Well, as I said before, the assistant district attorney in the courtroom, when the case comes into the courtroom, remember what I said the first job of the district attorney's office is, and that is to take the case, let's say that this is the police report, to take the case from the police, to go into the courtroom, to get a conviction and a tough sentence, but also to try to get that person held in jail while the case is pending. And there are mechanisms for doing that. There are really 3. The first is high bail, meaning an amount of money that the person has to post that is so high that they can't meet it and free themselves. The second is the dangerousness statute, which I spoke about. And the third is the bail revocation statute. That's where the person is accused of committing one crime. Let's say they're out on the corner, they're dealing drugs and they're caught. Their bail is $2,000. They make bail, and within a month, they're arrested again on the same corner. Now, we all know of cases where that happens. What should be happening on that case is that the next time that the person comes into court, their bail on the first case should be revoked, meaning you're going to stay in jail, Mr. Defendant, for 60 days. And then if the district attorney's office can get ready for trial within 60 days, then the person stays in jail until the case is over, until the defense attorney is ready to go to trial, and the case goes to trial and there's a guilty plea. Now, the dangerousness statute and the bail revocation statute, those two statutes that allow you to stop the revolving door and to keep people in jail while their case is pending, while their case is open, those statutes need to be used much more than they are right now. And the way to use those statutes more is to have more prosecutors in the courtroom and to have those prosecutors better trained. And if I'm elected district attorney, you'll see both those results. You'll see better results. You'll see more prosecutors, you'll see better training of prosecutors, and you'll see an end to the revolving door.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh.
Nothing bothers me more than when I go to court and I see a case on the list, Commonwealth versus Joe Jones, and I say to the assistant DA, wait a minute, we prosecuted him a year ago and sent him to prison. What is he doing out? We need to change that culture. We've got to make the judges realize that this is serious stuff. A judge that releases someone on bail is more than likely not going to hold them as a dangerous person. They've already made up their minds that they're going to let this person walk that day. What we need to do, and I have legislation to be filed, that will make it automatic. That a person that is out on bail who commits another crime is held automatically. The judge doesn't have a chance to say, well, it's just a minor crime, well, it only happened here, I don't think it's that serious. I'm going to let him go again and again and again. Make it automatic. These are the types of tools and weapons that I think we need to use to make the judges do the job that they're supposed to be doing now. Nothing bothers me more than prosecuting an individual time and time again, recommending a high sentence, having him get a low one, only to go back on the street and we have to prosecute him again. This is a waste of judicial resources, a waste of prosecutorial resources, and a waste of your tax dollars.
Thank you. Question number 3. Mr. Walsh. Should defense attorneys who bring cases before the district attorney be allowed to be fundraisers or participate in fundraisers? If they do so, shouldn't the district attorney recuse himself from participating in cases involving these attorneys?
No. Everyone in America, everyone, whether you are a plumber, an electrician, a gardener, a greenskeeper, a lawyer, has the right to participate in our democracy, a right to vote, a right to be engaged in a political process, a right to donate his own hard-earned money to anyone's campaign, whether it's the President of the United States, a city councilor, or the district attorney. I've made that clear over the course of my career. I accept contributions from any good person who wants to become involved in the political process. This question was asked 3 months ago of my opponent, and he said, well, I'm going to take a good long look at this. While he was taking that good long look, he was accepting those contributions. I don't see anything wrong with it. If Mr. Sutter sees something wrong with it, then he should stop it, and he has his prerogative to do that. But I run a grassroots political organization. The largest fundraiser that I've ever had, the ticket price was $50. Just a month ago, Mr. Sutter requested $100, $250, or $500 in his fundraiser, after he said he would take a good long look at this process to see if there was anything wrong with it. I think you have to be straight with people. I don't see an issue with it. Mr. Sutter sees an issue with it, he should act accordingly. I act accordingly. Priest or penitent, plumber or electrician, politician or lawyer, I think anyone has the right to participate in our democratic process.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Sutter?
Well, I think we're both trying to be polite here, and I'll continue to try to be polite, but I think we also have to be straightforward. It's easy for my opponent to say that he limits his tickets to $50, but he doesn't limit his contributions to $50. He has a lot of individuals who have contributed $500. In fact, over the course of the 16 years that he's been in office, he's raised over $1 million. He had $565,000 to start this campaign. He's probably raised another $100,000 since. So that's a lot more than just $50 contributions. Now, my response to your question is that I believe it is important for people to believe that the district attorney cannot be swayed by anything. That the district attorney is going to be, as the symbol of justice shows, blind. Blind and straight down the middle in applying justice. And I think that there is a risk that if you as a district attorney accept more than, say, $100 contribution each year from a defense attorney, there's a risk that hardworking people are going to see that you've accepted a $500 contribution, say, from a husband and a wife, so that's a total of $1,000, and think, ooh, maybe the district attorney is not dealing with that lawyer's cases the way they deal with other lawyers' cases. So as a result of that, the position that I have staked out, and I think it's a good one, is that I will limit, if I'm elected district attorney, I will limit any contribution from somebody that does defense work to $100. And the reason is that I don't think anybody is going to suggest that I can be swayed on a case by somebody who's given $100 to my campaign fund. I think that that gives people the clear idea that the district attorney is not going to be swayed by the amount that's been contributed by a particular defense attorney or their family. So that's my view. At the time that I was first asked the question, I hadn't had an opportunity to think about it, and now I have, and I'm stating my view very clearly in a very straightforward manner.
Thank you, gentlemen. I was just been told that you and all of us need to speak a little slower because the simultaneously translators are having a hard time keeping up with the translations. Okay?
I could speak in Portuguese if it would help.
You can afterwards. Afterwards, you can speak Portuguese. After the program is over, you're more than welcome because you'll have an opportunity to meet with the audience. Thank you.
I think my wife will be happy to speak Portuguese with anybody here also.
Okay, thank you. Okay, question number 4 for Mr. Sutter. In late 1997, the Bristol County District Attorney's Office was awarded a multi-year grant to establish an accelerated deportation program. This program was stopped in 2000. This program had a profound effect on the Portuguese-speaking community. 6 years later, how do you evaluate the successes and shortcomings of the accelerated deportation program? Mr. Sutter?
I think the accelerated deportation program was a dreadful mistake. And I think that my opponent must acknowledge that, because after the program was in effect for approximately 2.5 years, he did away with it. Reading from his campaign brochure from 1999, he wrote, in 1998, we established an accelerated deportation program to speed up the process of identifying and deporting non-citizen criminals from Bristol County back to their native countries. One of the major goals of the program is to make the Bristol County District Attorney's Office the model for efficient deportation activities. The final sentence in this says, as the program moves into its second year, more and more criminals have been processed for deportation. Now, he had at least 4 employees in that unit. I see here deportation technician, field investigator, and there was at least 1 attorney. I think that in view of what the law in 1996 did, a law that was subsequently ruled by the United States Supreme Court to be unconstitutional, a law that initially said that you that somebody could be deported for something that they had done prior to 1996 without a hearing. And the Supreme Court said no, they're entitled to a hearing. I think in view of the flaws with that law, the district attorney should never have started that program. And I think that the combination of the accelerated deportation program and that law, until it was ruled to be unconstitutional, hurt families unnecessarily. So I think that the program was a mistake, and I think that he has acknowledged that it was a mistake by disbanding the program, which he did in June of 2000, and that's my view of that.
Mr. Walsh.
Years ago, we prosecuted an individual from the Dominican Republic for selling cocaine here in New Bedford. He was here illegally. That's all he did was sell cocaine. He was here illegally. We prosecuted him. He got a sentence. He was released for sentence and supposed to be sent back, but he didn't. He stayed on the streets. He said at one point, "I would rather be here in the United States in prison selling cocaine than have to go back to the Dominican Republic." And that's what he did. He came here only to sell cocaine, and going to jail didn't bother him at all. The only thing that bothered him was the threat of being sent back to where he came from. He didn't want to do that. I think individuals that come to this country just to commit crime, illegal, not law-abiding, forfeit the right to be here. Because there are so many good, law-abiding people that come here from other countries. People that are in the Azores right now waiting to get into this country, but they can't because we've got others that come here just to sell dope. And they ruin the quality of life in neighborhoods like this one that is populated by so many immigrants. Helena, you know this. That federal grant provided resources to individuals that we were trying to repatriate so that they would have the skills and the language and all of the other things that would turn them back into useful individuals back in their society. The Immigrants Assistance Center shared in that federal grant, and we did some very good things with that. I did not discontinue that federal grant. Federal grants end after a 3-year period. But I have a big difference with Mr. Sutter. I think if you come to this country and you just want to sell dope, then you're not welcome here. You forfeit the right to be here because there are too many good, hardworking people that want to come here and lead productive lives for us to put up with that crowd.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Question number 5 and last question. In cases of domestic violence, the spouse is faced with the choice of losing their family breadwinner or facing continued domestic violence. When people are brought before the court, could there be an alternative choice, such as mandatory counseling, instead of hard choices of an automatic deportation or dropping their charges? Mr. Walsh?
I think our court system does a terrible job when it comes to domestic violence. We need a separate system. We have individuals that are bounced from the probate court, from the divorce court, and they send them over to the criminal court. And then at the criminal court, they say, this is really a divorce issue. You belong back in the probate court. When the reality is, it's not one nor the other. We should have a third system to deal with individuals who have difficulties in their marriage or in their relationship so that they don't have to make the hard choice between testifying against their husband or dismissing the case so that he batters them again. There are ways. We have to be creative and innovative about the systems, not just pick and choose and say, go to divorce court, go to criminal court. We need to resolve these issues in a way that respects the family, but also breaks the cycle of violence, so that youngsters who are watching this stuff go on at home don't grow up to be batterers and victims themselves. Our system does not do a good job with it. We need a third approach to this problem.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Sam?
Well, I mean, with all respect, the problem with my opponent's answer is that it doesn't get into any specifics. You see, this domestic violence issue is very complex. And the main reason why it's complex is because of the amount of time that always passes from the day of the incident until the day that the case comes up for trial. You see, so many times on the day of the incident, the person, usually a woman, who has been victimized, who has been battered, who has been beaten, wants justice and wants punishment, or wants some counseling, some action by the court against the boyfriend or husband that did that to her. But it's always going to take some time for the case to reach the trial list. And during that time, a significant percentage of those, that unless the beating is so terrible that they're hospitalized, usually a significant percentage of those, by the time the case comes up for trial, now just wants the case to go away. And I think that one way that we could do a better job on domestic violence cases is, when that day arrives, when the case comes up for trial, and the person who was victimized, usually a woman, girlfriend or wife, wants the case to go away, I think that the district attorney's office has to do a better job of going forward with those cases so that the case doesn't go away. I'm not always saying act in such a way that the family is broken up, but there has to be a message that is sent out to the perpetrators of domestic violence that if they make up with the person that they battered and beat up, that the case is not going to go away if the victim comes into court and says, I want the case to go away. Too many times what I'm seeing over there now is that on the day of reckoning, on the day of trial, the victim says, well, I participated in the fight. I have a Fifth Amendment privilege under the United States Constitution to say I want the case dismissed. And the district attorney's office and the judge just go along with that. I think a stand has to be taken, especially on the serious cases, where that Fifth Amendment right that victims often hide behind because they want the case to go away, that is challenged. There's a way to do that. It's spelled out in the case of Commonwealth versus Taylor, a famous case out of Boston. And that needs to be done more by the district attorney's office. That Fifth Amendment right on domestic violence cases that is being used so that the case goes away, that needs to be challenged so that the court is able to enforce certain sentences on the defendant so that these domestic violence cases increase. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now closing statements. Mr. Sutter.
Well, I want to begin by saying that I don't want anybody selling dope in this country. I don't know where my opponent got that idea. I want individuals that are selling dope prosecuted more severely than he does. I want to see a lot less plea bargaining on dope cases. I want drug dealers to be held in jail a lot more than they are now. I want to use electronic surveillance so we find out who the big dealers are and we put them away for long periods of time. But that's just one of the many reasons that I'm running. That's just one of that interest of mine to take a tougher, harder stand against drug dealing is just one of the many reasons I'm running. I'm running because I want to make our neighborhoods safer. And I am positive that I can. And I'm positive that I can make our neighborhoods safer by a better partnership with the police. Just ask the police that have endorsed me. They believe that I can do that. They believe that I can work more closely with them to fight crime more effectively and to get tougher sentences and to win more cases. And I believe I can make our neighborhoods safer by putting more prosecutors in the courtroom. Because if you do that, if you trim the fat from the budget and you put more prosecutors in the courtroom, you're going to win more cases and you're going to get tougher sentences. It's very simple. If an assistant district attorney has 40 cases to handle on a particular day, and you cut that in half so that they have only 20 cases to handle on that particular day, they're going to do a better job with those 20. And you're going to be able to win more cases and get tougher sentences. And finally, as I've said many times, throughout this campaign. We need to use all of the crime-fighting tools that we have at our disposal, like electronic surveillance. Not just one case, the Brandon Gonzalez case, where the wiretap wasn't sought by Mr. Walsh, it was sought by the federal authorities, and he just signed on. Just ask the state troopers involved in that case. We need to do that on a consistent basis. That's what was done during the 1980s. That's what was abandoned during the 1990s and during the 21st century. That's how thugs like Tim Mello were allowed to rampage and lead organized crime in southeastern Massachusetts, because we didn't have enough information, and the district attorney didn't have enough information about him. He would have had that information with electronic surveillance. So a closer partnership with the police, more prosecutors in the courtroom, electronic surveillance, tougher stands on the cases, less plea bargaining, longer sentences against the big criminals. That's how I can make our neighborhoods safer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sutter. Mr. Walsh?
I grew up 2 miles from here. I still live there. I played basketball in this very gymnasium when I grew up. I remember what Rivet Street used to be on a Saturday. The shops and the stores were open. I would be over at Ashley Park, at Ashley Playground, playing ball. I remember what is now a nice restaurant, Adega, used to be Thomas's department store. My mother would take us there this time of year to buy our clothes for school. And I remember the Thomases. Joe Thomas was in my brother's class at Holy Family High School. This was, this is, and this can be a wonderful neighborhood. And it can be again. We face challenges. I'm sure in those days that I grew up, I probably had as many fights as anyone else over here at Ashley Park. But we didn't resort to a gun. We didn't resort to a weapon. And nowadays it seems to be the first resort that every kid out there has a weapon. And we've got to do something about it. We face these challenges, but we face them together. We don't need to blame somebody, say, well, it must be the DA's fault. No, it's the police officer's fault. No, it's someone else's fault. We need to work on these issues together, because your neighborhood is my neighborhood. We need a district attorney that we know. A district attorney that we know where he stands. A district attorney you can trust. Now is not the time, when we're facing these challenges, to experiment with public safety. Now is not the time to trust someone we don't know. We don't know that he knows these streets. We don't know that he knows these neighborhoods, and we don't know what he will do if he is elected. You do know me. I grew up in this area. I've been your district attorney. We face challenges, but we need a district attorney who knows our streets, who knows our neighborhoods, and who is willing to take a stand and fight for what he stands for. Now, I'm not telling you in 16 years I haven't made mistakes. I've probably made a bucket full of mistakes. But I'm willing to get in there. And I remember the voice of the whaleboat man who talks about courage and said courage was in fact John Pinero's father. Courage is that tiny voice inside you that says, I will try again tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Our program is over, and there's refreshments in the back, and you'll have an opportunity to leave the audience. Thank you very much.
Hi, how are you? Good. What time is it? Sure. Oh, I can see Donna. Donna.
Sam Sutter. Nice to meet you. Then I'll come back and talk to you.
I just want to know if you have any more of the sheets that have your names.